fighting fury, we're from Tigerland. In any weather you will see us with a grin, risking head and skin. If we're behind, then never mind, we'll fight and win, for we're from Tigerland. We never weak until the final siren's gone.
A West Coast supporter, an Essendon supporter, and a Richmond supporter all walk into a bar. It sounds like the start of a real dad joke or a shit joke, but it serves a great purpose tonight because we are obviously a couple of days away from the draft, and our three clubs hold the first 6 picks, which is an extraordinary feat. Obviously, Melbourne jumping on behind us as well with another 2, which is even more absurd that 4 clubs hold the first 8. I'm not actually sure that's been done before, but we thought we'd get together and just see what the lay of the land is. Obviously, Cal Twomey's Phantoms come out, which we'll talk about as well, because that seems to be the holy grail when it comes to form guides. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting couple of days. But first, let's welcome the guests. We've got, my screen has gone blank. First, we'd like to welcome Scooter McNeese from the Lunchtime Catch-Up Podcast. Scooter, how are you, mate? What's going on?
Hey, how is everyone? Doing good. Exciting time of the year. So we'll talk about Cal's Phantom Draft, but I think you're going to grab a play that I just really wanted, so I have a bit of envy. So you'll have to excuse if I show any envy towards this whole episode. But no, it's looking great for Eagles and Richmond, and I think it's going to be a solid outcome for Essendon as well.
I think so. I think there's a lot of win-wins to be had. And our second guest we've got on tonight, who's representing West Coast, Jeppa from the Plus 6 podcast. How are you, mate?
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me, lads, and especially Chris. Yeah, it's exciting times for us cellar dwellers. This is our grand final, I suppose, where we have peak optimism and we get to see what new fresh meat comes in and, buoyant for next year.
Now, this is a return leg for us. We were obviously on your show, Scooter. What was it? Was it maybe a month and a bit ago now, roughly, it might have been, talking about the plays. And if I had time today, I wanted to listen back to see if any of our predictions or what we were anticipating had changed. I'm guessing it maybe might have, although even back then, I do remember us joking that all 3 of our clubs are kind of chasing the same type of player.
Yeah, you go, Jep.
Sorry, Scott. It's that running mid. We just need those pace players from the midfield, I think, for all of us. I mean, Layla for Richmond needs to be complemented, as does Harley Reid, as does an established midfield in Caldwell and Durham. So, the running mids like, Dersma is one. Cumming is now the flavour of the week and may rise a bit higher now. And obviously there's plenty of others.
And I sense too that it's not just midfielders. I sense the flavour of the month is attacking midfielders that can score, which is probably why the Phantom Draft is no real surprise when you've got a Dersma, Roby and Cumming right up towards the front, because they're attacking natured midfielders that can rotate in different positions and quite versatile. And that seems to be where our recruitment teams are all at, but unfortunately one team is 5th and 6th.
It's been a funny sort of 48 hours. Like I saw a lot of photos posted from some of the boys at the hangar, and Essendon supporters getting up and about, and then Cal Twomey drops his Phantom Draft and hits the fan. But we'll start from the very top, Jeppa, with obviously West Coast. It's felt like the Dersma's been as locked in as it could be for the best part of 4 or 5 months, maybe. Has that sat well with you? And then onto your second pick Cal's got Cooper Duff Tytler. That's probably been the one that's maybe floated in and out with a few different players along the way. Who have you had in that spot yourself across the journey? And are you ultimately happy if it is Cooper Duff Tytler?
Yeah, Dersma's clearly, to me, the best player in this year's draft. Like, it doesn't come any simpler. Future A-grader that we desperately need, right? We need that connectivity from contest to forward line, and that's what I believe he'll bring. So that's a huge tick for me. And then our other need, and I know a lot don't see him as a ruckman, but I actually do, is Cooper Duff Tytler. I know he can play forward and he's got the ground skills, but he is actually an underrated ruckman. He had to share the role with Lewis Emmett in the 18s Carnival, and that was just the way it played out, I believe. It's both Emmett and Cooper Duff could play forward and could play in the ruck. So, yeah, there's development there for a future number one ruck role, and share that with Archer Reed. I think I've mentioned to you guys in the past, Archer Reed is being groomed as the future number one ruck, especially with the new jump ruck rules. So, it's going to complement our side for sure. So really, really, really happy. What I'm anxious about is our pick 13. It's
okay.
And we really need another mid, a contest mid. Like, can we trade up to get Dyson Sharp? Probably unlikely. So what else is available at that pick? And I think Twomey had it at 19 today after preferences and academies. So Dersmo, Cooper Duff, I think we just lock it in, and it's more what Richmond do from there on.
And you've always had Duff Tyler sort of in your eyes in that spot, or had you sort of swapped him out with a few others?
Yeah, maybe not early on in the year, but no, definitely as soon as we've known for a while that we're going to get picked 2, I think it was all common knowledge. But yeah, it was just to see what else emerged. I mean, all of us three, we watched the under-18s carnival pretty intently, unlike many supporters. And I've rewatched games, with a focus of just watching Cooper Duff Tyler, just trying to analyze him, see how he moves, and see what his strengths and weaknesses are. And look, Dyson Sharp would be obviously a great addition, really good head on his shoulders. But I think it's a win-win whichever way we go.
And I suppose the recent news that's come through is the bid on Harry Dean at pick 3. Do you think that's going to eventuate? Do you reckon you're going to have a crack there and just make him pay?
Well, I know that Harry Dean and William Dersmer are best mates. I understand that they're very close mates. So that may come from that. We obviously it doesn't matter which part of the ground or what list we need to bolster everywhere. So I'm okay with it, but I'm a bit more nervous about what happens in the back end with bids on Tyler Williams and more so Kobe Evans. I'm really, really hopeful, and I'll consider a big win if no other club bids on Kobe Evans, because he qualifies as a Category B rookie if he's not nominated. So Cohen Livingston wasn't offered a new contract. There's a Cat B spot there. Malachi Champion does have a contract for next year. So, it's either Wes Wally or Kobe Evans for that last spot. So, we'll see how it pans out with bids. But if there's no bid on Kobe Evans, I'll be almost as ecstatic as getting, pick 13 midfielder, whoever it may be. Obviously, Dersmer and Cooper Duff are the premier players. But, I'm really excited to see what happens in the back end of the draft too.
Can I say, Jeppa, on just behalf of all other teams, feel free to just bid on Annabelle, Patterson, Hewland, Dean straight away. And then
if we're going to upset one club, we might as well upset them all. So if we're going to bid on Hewland, if you're going to bid on Hewland, you might as well bid on Patterson and Dean. And just
I think if you don't, we will. I think we could go 3 or 4 in a row if you guys don't.
We definitely won't bid on Annabelle because they looked after us a little bit with Starcevic and Dev Robinson, delisting him, and I think there's a handshake agreement off record there. But all the others, if you're going to bid on one, personally, I wouldn't bid on any, just from how we need it to play out in the back end of the draft. And I don't want to upset the apple cart, but I'm not in charge.
And Scooter, I suppose our two clubs, or supporter bases in particular, we've kind of been squabbling over the same 3 or 4 players for the past couple of months. It's probably a 2-part question. Prior to today, what was your thoughts on who you were going to take, and how many times has it changed, and how comfortable were you with it? And then I guess, how do you feel now post the Cal Twomey Phantom, if it's anything to go by?
Yeah, look, I think I've changed it so many times of what I think's happening, because I had you guys for quite a while taking Sam Grill. because I just thought the messaging from the club during trade week, and that was just how important pace was, and getting some speed into the side. And I thought, because with the 7 or 8 guys that came in last year, that it may not be every pick being a best player up next. It may be like, we can actually grab a guy that may be a couple of spots down from our ranking, but is actually such an important critical need as far as the balance and the structure. I thought you may go Sam Grill, but it just doesn't. It's just the last week or so. It just hasn't felt that way. He's met with GWS. He's met with other clubs. It just hasn't felt. Obviously, you guys going to Sam Cumming. I mean, I really like Sam Cumming, and I liked Roby. So it's a tough one for me because I felt we needed some versatile mids that could score. But if you're going best talent, then they're probably close to mine. I mean, there'll be definitely some other people who rate Dyson Sharp right there, if not more. So it is in the eye of the beholder. This draft is just what you think. Is what the recruiters think and their own club ranking, the research they've done, because you could argue any one of these, Taylor, Roby, Cumming, Sharp, it could be the third best player in the draft. And that's, I think, how I've been talking about on the podcast is that how relaxed I am this draft now, because the range that we're at is that the talent's so close together that I go, well, really, it's like if someone told me I'm going to end up with Taylor, Sharp, and Doveston, and you go, well, who am I to complain about those three? Because the Essendon Football Club needs leadership and competitors, and you could argue all three have that in spades. I mean, obviously, Sharp brings an instant leadership coming through, a stability, gives you probably 250 games of hard-nosed, blue-collar, get the ball out to the runners. So you can't complain you really can't complain too much. I think as fans, you have your personal favourites, and I loved Roby. I loved his journey. So I won't lie. I obviously he was on our show and I chatted to him, and then talking to him off air about how much he loves the Bombers. It's tough, and it's got this unique situation where you could have Roby getting picked, and he's an Essendon fan, and the very next pick being maybe a Lindsay, and he's a Richmond fan. So you got it'll be like that. You need that professional face on both of them. And look, they'll be rapt about playing. One thing is, I honestly believe this, that Richmond's a great football club. Obviously, had very recent success and some dusty and just legends. They're a great club, and I say that even as an Essendon fan. So if I'm a kid, I'm an Essendon fan, but I'm going to the Richmond Football Club. I'm playing at the G. I'm playing with one of the loudest fan bases and the most passionate fan bases out there. So I'm loving life no matter what. So I don't think anyone really loses in
I don't
these
think so either.
Top six picks at all.
I think it's a win-win. I saw a question come through before just about the accuracy of Cal Twomey, and it's a good question, and I deliberately went back and did some research. So in 2020, he had one pick correct only in the top 10, so not a great start. But in 2021, Cal got the first 9 of 9 correct in his final Phantom. In 2022, he got the first 11 of 11 correct. In 2023, he got the first 7 of 7 correct. And 2024, he got the first 10 correct. So he's only got three of the top 10 wrong in the last 4 years, and it's been at the latter part of that top 10. So I guess it sort of stands to reason that he does have pretty good accuracy on that top 5 in particular. And maybe things change with the late mail, I guess, that comes out on Tuesday, Jeppa. Can you see a world in which any of that order changes that he's come out with today? Like, could West Coast throw a curveball and put a Roby up there, or a Sharp up there, or a Cumming up there? Or do you think that the top 5 to 10 that Cal's put out is pretty well locked?
The one thing it's hard for Cal to do is predict the trade. So I'm still not ruling out a potential trade between West Coast and Melbourne. Cameron Nairn is obviously a guy they're after. Would he slide for our pick? Probably not, but would we offer overs for one of their 2 picks? So that's the hard part to predict for Twomey. But yeah, I think the only other one really is for Essendon on their their 6 picks. Is maybe Jacob Farrow would come into the mix, and it sounds like they are considering him, although it sounds more unlikely than likely now.
So do you see trades eventuating possibly between your 2 clubs, Scooter and Jep? Because I think that we're probably out of the equation from a trade perspective.
Yeah, I think it's more hope from my point of view. I don't think Cameron Nairn's going to slip to 19 or, where it falls later. I think it's too much of a risk for Melbourne. They like their man. They've done it in the past where they've sourced their player and backed them in and just picked them for where they are. So, yeah, I think, there's more unlikely. But, Clark today on Gettable was saying we could even slip our pick 13 back, which was interesting. And I think he was referring to the Greaves-Adamsall sort of midfield selection there. They could slide a couple of picks back if they felt it was warranted. So, yeah, I think the top 10 is pretty set for me. But, yeah, I love the live training aspect. It's like the theatre of it, right? And second rounders don't hold their value of what they used to hold, 2 years ago.
And
index rules. So,
and Rosa today, he actually didn't, to surprise me a bit, he actually didn't cancel out talking to West Coast and maybe Richmond about going up. So they may have, my gut feeling is when Cal said today that he feels like the top 8 is set, there may even be clubs asking about it, but it's probably more likely not going to happen than happen. I think that's kind of where Essendon's at. I think they would ask the question, but I just don't think. And look, I think there's many Essendon fans, and maybe it's like me. I don't want us to if it's pick 2 or 3, I just don't think it's worth it. I'm not even putting down CDT. I just don't find personally the gap between CDT, Sharp, and a Taylor big enough to warrant losing one of those players like a Doveston. I just don't, because each 3 of those players are genuine needs, and we need high-end talent coming in. So I hope for my personal sake that we don't go down that path and take the 3 peaks that we've got.
The only way it could happen is if it involves a future, I think. And Essendon aren't going to trade a future first. So, yeah, I think it's pretty set. And, let's see what happens after that, though.
Well, we're talking about the trades. Let's bring this up and try and walk through what a couple might look like. So this is Pommy and Oz's draft simulator. I'm sure a lot of people watching have seen this. It's on his website, free to use, fully built, fully tested. They worked on this for months. All the draft points are properly allocated. They deduct, it moves. It does everything you could possibly want it to do. So Pommy and Oz, you're a superstar, sir, for completing one to that extreme level. Because I guess there's been a few things floated from a Richmond perspective. And just for context, around this time last year, Blair Hartley did meet with Bo Allen, and there was a lot of speculation, a lot of connection between Richmond and Bo Allen, but it was all complete bullshit. We had it was just a smoke screen. So the story comes out today that we met with Sam Cumming in Mildura the other day. So people are wondering, is it a smoke screen? And then we've gone and named, if we've given Cal Twomey some info, of course, we've gone with Sullivan Roby and Sam Cumming as our 2 picks, which we know one of them is a player of high interest to Essendon. And I feel like that we also know that we'd be comfortable with Xavier Taylor. So it's like, are we trying to bluff Essendon into maybe committing to something for Sullivan Roby by putting it out there that we're taking him at one of our picks? But again, to your point, Jeppa, as well, I can't see futures being used here. No club is giving up a future first as part of these deals. It would be complete madness. But we'll have a look at, I suppose, what it could look like. So if Essendon was there, Club B, Richmond. So if we're trying to portray Well, I suppose we put down Cumming at 3 and Roby at 4. So if we work off that, if you were going to come after pick 4, Scooter, what offer do you think would be reasonable enough to get that over the line if Sullivan Roby was a play that you really wanted ahead of anybody else?
It's a good question. You feel like you kind of feel like the Carlton trade can't happen then. Like you feel like you almost.
Well, does that have to happen first? That's actually a good point. Does your trade with Carlton need to happen first?
I mean, that's an interesting point, right? Is this because I always felt like if we ever wanted to trade up, it would be like, hey, Tigers, do you want a future second? Do you want 21? Pick 21. I just feel like it's hard for me to conceive of, where you're at in the draft that a pick 9 would be involved, like a package because it just feels like, unless they think Roby's the next coming of
I agree. Because I suppose if we execute the Carlton trade first, which is spoken about being those 3 picks for pick 9, because then everyone's happy point wise. Yeah. The only way I've seen it's sort of working with Essendon and Richmond, and I straight out said it was way overs for us to be getting, is if you got pick 4 from us, and it was 5 and 9, but it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense from Essendon's perspective, like you said, unless you thought he was the next coming of Dustin Martin, then he would maybe do it. But I don't know whether one of those picks in isolation work. I don't know whether one of those picks and one of your 20s picks are enough to do it either. It's probably a really hard one to orchestrate.
Yeah, it all depends on your NGAs next year, whether a future second, say, would be tempting, would be that kind of scenario. If they really liked Roby, I can only think of a future scenario where we help you out on points, because I know people go, oh, what future second? But let's face it, like we've got rid of a whole lot of senior players. We're going to be the youngest team in the AFL. We're actually going to replace, who was it, either Freo or West Coast. So most are tipping us to finish bottom 5, right? So a future second is probably around 23, 22. So that's what you have to factor in, that where we're at, what a future second. So that to me is probably the only play if you do that trade with Carlton. If you don't, then pick 21 would be more your 5 and 21 for like a swap. So, but it just seems so, it all depends how much that Carlton thing plays.
It seems too lopsided. What about you as an impartial Jeppa? Can you see any way a deal could be done if Essendon are wanting to shift up? It almost feels like they're shifting up to your 2 to get a player rather than our 3.
Yeah, but then the Carlton trade definitely can't happen, right? So do we know for sure that it's the 3 picks from Essendon to Carlton? Is it not potentially a 21, 27 and future second? Because how are you going to pay for Swede?
Yeah, well, the way Cal talked about it was that he believed it's those 3 picks involved, but Essendon in that deal are negotiating a pick back. Okay. So Carlton have 43 and 54, right? Look, no doubt we would ask for 43 back, right? That will be, once all the bids are done on all those 20s and 30s picks. Like I did my own simulation, we were around about 36, 37 pick. So that kind of gets you closer to the Swade range. You might go into deficit a bit, but it gets you closer. And LHK, will be back end. It would be, I think that's a much more of an easier situation. So I think that's where it kind of that situation does. So it's just a very tricky one. It's I don't know I don't know if we're just going to roll my gut is we'll probably just roll the dice and just see what happens on the night. And because I'm still not, like, I'm the only one, even though with the whole information about Cal being accurate, I'm Cal's biggest fan, I'm still a little bit cynical on the late coming, traveling to Mildura 4 days before a draft. Like, I still feels like that information just getting leaked to Cal. I still, like, when I heard Richmond today on Gettable, I don't know about anyone else on this forum, but I just thought, oh, gee, it sounds like Taylor's almost a lot because
I thought that too.
So yeah, it's. I feel like I'm still want this to play out and see, and I'd probably be just backing the picks in and just let it play out because the talent's pretty good around anyway.
Any other trade scenarios, Jeppa, that you could consider for the Eagles? Do you think the Melbourne one's a chance to play out, or do you reckon it's another one that's
it's unlikely, but we will have to offer overs. And what I thought we could do was have pick 8 and pick 63 from Melbourne for picks 13, 34, and our future second. And that is just to get Sharp. If Sharp's not available, then the live trade won't happen. So 13.
So what were you giving up in this one? So 13,
34.
Yep.
And a future second.
And
that puts the Williams, if the Williams early bid by Freo, which would break my heart, that puts that at risk hugely. But I think in the short term, Sharp is far more of value to West Coast. So yeah, maybe that happens, but yeah, it's unlikely. I think Melbourne won't want to risk. The theory I had was, well, if they want Nan and they've sort of allocated to him, he's a bit of a bolter. He might slide down the order a bit after bid, so he might accommodate both teams. But yeah, like I said, more unlikely than likely.
It's not a bad one. It puts you in a good spot there, doesn't it? Like if you were chasing Sharp hard, that does actually put you in a really good spot.
Yeah. And then Farah would be the backup at that spot if Essendon did pick him or Richmond.
Can I throw a curveball? I was thinking about this the other day because I think we really like Dobston, right? And the tricky part with us is the pick 9 is after 2 mil of the Demons 2 picks, where you still feel like there's a small chance they could get Dobston. And my view was today is like, do you back in that Sharp will get past Melbourne and pick Dobston with Taylor?
Or go early with him.
Yeah, go early with him and sort of take out the equation of the Demons getting Dobston, right? And then you'd have to have fairly solid information that the Demons would skip Sharp, and that's the risk. But the other part to that is like if he does go to Essendon's pick 9, you also have an ability of a whole lot of clubs maybe on the phone too.
Yeah, I think Twomey said Collingwood would definitely offer something big to Melbourne.
Yes.
Yeah, the phone's gonna go off the hook, I would have thought.
Yeah. So it would be interesting how Essendon see that because I think they really want Dobston, but there is that small risk of the Demons probably need a small forward as well. So I think the Cameron Nan part has really thrown everyone out.
And they've almost sort of snookered themselves a little bit because it seems to be just them driving the interest that everyone knows.
Yeah.
Either they take him off him or, to your point earlier, Jeppa, I'm not sure he'd slip far enough down the order now that his name's been put up in lights. Everyone will start to cotton on to whatever the Ds were having a crack at as well. If there's been some speak, there was a little bit of murmuring about Farrow speaking to the Tigers. Have you heard anything about that, Jeppa, out your way?
No, not at all. No, that would really surprise me. For me, I see him as a midfielder. I don't actually see him as a halfback. He played state 18s at halfback because they needed the polished kicker, the quarterback behind the ball. They had literally no one else in the state team. So that was my reasoning or my understanding of why he played behind the ball. He's a mid. Trust me. He'll start as a halfback in AFL circles, but very much like Hayden Young and Jordan Dawson, transition into the midfield. So he'll be a great player. I hope we can get him, but looking doubtful unless the trade happens. But if Richmond,
I think it feels like it'd be too high where we are.
So that nothing surprises me, but that would actually surprise me.
So they've got him at 11. We'll say that Cal's got him at 11 to the Ds. Would Essendon have interest, Scooter, in Farrow?
Yeah. They've researched quite heavily into him, I believe. So that I think a lot of people thought it was 50-50 on whether we pick Farrow. So we have a very strong WA connection, Essendon, as far as recruitment and scouts. They've always been very strong in the WA leagues. And they've been all over him all year, especially when he plays the midfield role. I genuinely believe it was all about midfield, because I think people forget that he's probably by next year he'll be 190 centimeters, around 189 now. But probably when he's 18 and fully grown, he'll be 190 centimeter left foot, smooth kicking midfielder. I mean, he's the kind of guy that could really shine like a Dawson has, because he's really balanced, makes good decisions. He's actually quite tough sometimes in the clinches in traffic as well. He actually can release the ball out. He's not just smooth and silk. He actually has got a bit of a competitive side in traffic. So I think he'd be a really good pick. I'd probably rank him around more towards the 7 to 12 range, but I think he's a really promising player. I think the only thing that people were just worrying about was probably more his pace. But yeah, I think there's a lot of upside to him.
Could you see yourself taking him ahead of Xavier Taylor, or does Taylor provide something extra for you, or would Farrow?
Yeah, well, Taylor's a really interesting one because I noticed some Bomber sentiment going, look, we've gone, best talent almost. It's a best talent selection, but you've suddenly got a healthy Redmond, Ridley, Reed, Mackay, McGrath, Archie Roberts. So it's not an obvious fit yet. We don't really have a Weddle type of player, which is obviously why we're offering a crazy amount of money for the Hawks to get Weddle next year. But we actually needed a dynamic halfback. So I think that's more their mindset of where they think maybe they could take him to be a much more aggressive offensive kind of, who obviously can play defense and stop, but on the rebound, be a guy that's very aggressive, run the lines, set up quite a bit of our play. So I've got a funny feeling that's where they're thinking. But he's like a bit like Farrow, right? He's a player that I haven't locked like a permanent position in my mind yet, because there's watching the some of the final series in the Talent League, and watching Eastern Rangers. There's definitely moments that I saw live at the ground where I went, oh, that's like a midfield craft, what he 100%. Just did there. So I'm not sure his story's going to end up at halfback yet. So he's just a talented footballer. So I think that's just the selection, right? It's just like, and he's just he hates to lose. He hates to lose a contest. And when I said at the start of the show about Dyson Sharp and what you're bringing into a culture that's probably suffered, a culture that's been, obviously fairly knocked. If your first two picks are Dyson Sharp and Xavier Taylor, you're having straight away a culture of two guys coming in, post with Archie Roberts and Caddy, of really four competitors that just hate losing, and you're starting to churn over hopefully a different culture.
The one thing I've noticed, Jeppa, I've noticed it from Richmond supporters, but as someone who's watched a lot of football, I'm keen to get your take on it. A lot of people from Richmond seem to be against the notion of Xavier Taylor because he played in defence in the Coates League. I think some people struggle to see past the positions they're named in or what they play in under 18s and what they could be. Do you think a lot of players in Coates get sometimes misjudged because of the position they play in, when there's definitely, like Xavier Taylor, I think there's way more to him than just an intercept defender?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and look, that for that team, for either it's Eastern or the state team, it's where the coaches see that his best value add is, right?
Yeah.
And that could be completely different for an AFL side. So it wouldn't surprise me if Xavier Taylor drafted Essendon plays round one on the wing. Just would not surprise me at all, because he can get up and down and he can compete when the contest is near him on that side of the ground, etc., etc. And that's his initiation into AFL, and Essendon's back six are pretty set. But for the Tigers, very much similar. Like looking at your list build, there's the Tom Browns, you've got Banks, Short, Vlosten still got a year or two left, etc. You're pretty set in that back six, maybe one key defender short. So, yeah, does he come in and play as an undersized key? I don't think that's where his best value add is personally. He's more of a ball contested line breaker, a bit like Wilmot, but better one-on-one. So, yeah, I think it's just wherever these kids get drafted to this particular teams, unless they're academy kids and they're being groomed like Ezekiel and is going to be groomed to start on a wing for Gold Coast, you can pretty much see it already with time on ball here and there. And, Patterson's obviously half back because they're part of their academies and getting and a better initiation. For our clubs, it's just a bit different on where coaches and under 18 and coach league coaches or state Waffle and the Sandfield coaches see them. So it's interesting, and that's where the development comes, and that's where you get some excitement, and you get these guys like Archie Roberts, who was picked 68 2 years ago, come from nowhere. I think he was actually all Australian in his under 18 year, but didn't get favoured by recruiters until Essendon, and he's flourished in a system where he can play a bit loose off half back and do his own thing and be a bit more damaging. So, yeah, it depends where they get drafted to and the development of the individuals. But for me, Taylor suits Richmond and suits Essendon. But he could be a third tall in Richmond and he could be a winger in Essendon. It's a bit ironic I say that. But the guy like Taylor, you can see, like Scott said before, he's just so competitive, and that brings leadership with his competitiveness and hating losing a contest, and everyone follows his lead. So I think he was captain at Eastern, if I'm not mistaken. So I think whoever gets him is going to have a winner.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question? Because it is the Tigercast show, and there's three of us, and you've got two picks. So I want to ask you a question as a Richmond fan, but for your audience as well. If that situation happened with Roby and Cumming, I'm curious, how does that all develop then with Laylaw and Smiley? Like, how do you think that all balances out for Richmond? And
I love it. So,
were you happy with it?
Yeah, so Roby and Cumming is my number one pairing. That's who I would like the most. I wouldn't be mad if it was Xavier Taylor. I can see past him being a defender and sort of along Jeppa's train of thought. I can see him being a winger for us as well down the track. But on Cumming and Roby, I see them rounding out our midfield and our half forward line. Like I look at Brisbane and Gold Coast and how deep they bat. We obviously need a lot more sort of marking and goal targets up forward. We've got a couple of smalls that maybe aren't quite there, but I did a video the other week looking at the rotations and what it could look like. So in let's say 3-4 years, the starting midfield might be, let's call it Tom Sims rucking potentially, and you could have Taranto in there with Lawler Smiley or Lawler Houghton, and they can rotate on the half forward line with Roby and Cumming. So you're kind of getting A graders in, A graders out, but the appealing factor for me with Roby and Cumming is more their aerial marking ability as well and their goal kicking ability. I think it works really nicely with Sam Lawler, and you actually end up with a triple threat forward line that's not even your key forwards. So that's without Jonty Fall and whoever else doing what they do. The beauty of Roby as well, and you would have known this from your chat with him, that because he was a smaller player for so long, he's had tremendous work on his ground level game. So he's no slouch when the ball hits the deck. And even though he might get to 194, he plays like a smaller midfielder with a big body who can just hurt people and bash and crash. So I guess the unknown's the ceiling on him. That's probably the question all of us don't really know the answer to. But I think that those two would round out our midfield and half forward line quite nicely.
Yeah, look, I tend to agree. I think what I really like for those two players for you is both have such clean hands, which is so important in today's game. Like it just reduces that turnovers. If you could just have that they're both exceptional with their hands in traffic, and ground ball gets. It's just something they both excel at. So look, it would be an ideal situation for you guys to have that kind of rotations coming from forward to midfield. So I could, I think you would, it would really set you up quite strongly.
Yeah, I think you have to these days. You've got to have that depth. Otherwise, you just can't compete with the Geelongs, Brisbanes, and Gold Coasts of the world. But I gather you're both equally as comfortable though with the players at your pick. I know, Jeppa, you've got pick of the crop. If you had the ability to pick anyone from the draft, even including the academy players, if you were to have the top 2 picks, who would you take?
I would take Dersma and Newland. Yeah, Newland's a gun. He can run all day. He can play inside and out. He can spread from contest, and I feel like he would complement Harley Reid really well. We probably need another in and under ball winner like a Smiley or a Durham or a Caldwell like that to complement those two. But yeah, Newland for me is along with Dersma, they're the clear top 2 players in the draft.
Scooter, who are you going? If you've got open slather, top 2.
Yeah. Look, I've always struggled every time I said this with Newland because I can only go by the people who saw him in the previous year and what the kind of player they describe. And you go, well, that would be perfect. So I'm probably similar with Jeppa. I really like Dylan Patterson, by the way. I think he's a really exciting player. That will be a real highlight reel coming through. But look, I think it's funny because the number 1 pick has been shored up really for months now. I think it's undersold just how good a situation West Coast have in getting Willem Dersma because I really find there's a gap between him and the rest of the pack because I think he does nearly all 3 lines of the ground at an elite level, which is so, usually the unicorn tag can be a real bummer. Sometimes it can be a guy that can only play good in 3 different areas, but this guy can play elite in all 3 different areas. And that's the difference between me. So I remember Jasper from ESPN saying that he would have last year Dersma as the number 1 player. So I think, judging what I've seen of Law, that's a big call now because he's a gun. But but West Coast are in a really good position because around the ball, having if you can have Dersma, Reid, a CDT, you're doing pretty well because of what CDT can do. Really mobility wise. So he could be a real star. His testing was it was like ridiculous. His combine testing, he was beating probably 80% of mids times. So there's a whole layer to him that I don't think we'll appreciate yet until he starts doing at AFL level what this guy can do around the ground. So West Coast are in a really strong position So look, I probably, for me, always it was Roby, Patterson, Newland, and Dersma. That were probably the 4 players that really excited me. I haven't seen enough of Annabelle, but I know there was one recruiter that said for him he was the number 1 player in the country. So I'll be really interested to see what Annabelle does. It'll be very interesting, but I'm probably going with Jep just by Newland's reputation. I'm probably going to go that because a quick, very skillful running machine. I think that's all our 3 teams are craving that kind of player.
Absolutely.
I don't mind Dylan Patterson either. I think, he probably fits our need the most right now. And it's almost a shame there's no way to actually pry him out of Gold Coast. I think all bases are covered, that they can match anything and everything. I've got a question for you, Jeppa.
Okay. I was just going to say, he'll be your most authentic bid on the night.
100%. Yeah, be like, yeah, sign him up. We'll take him.
Yeah.
Jeppa Hayden wants to know what's happening with West Coast father-son this year. What's his draft range?
Yeah, so Charlie Banfield, massive midfielder, can play inside and outside. Son of Drew. I was at the Colts grand final where he was best on ground, and he absolutely had a blinder, which was unsurprising. He's had a pretty good back half of the year. It's a bit funny because at state level he sort of was not first picked for the inside role. He sort of played a half forward role and just went in there sporadically into the midfield. So, yeah, he was up against it, I suppose, in showcasing his talents. Personally, I'm hoping, obviously, no bid comes for him, but it is expected either Kobe, and this is where West Coast are in a bit of a situation. I mentioned Kobe Evans before. We need one to slide to the rookie to not be bid on effectively. There's a spot there rookie list spot for one of them, and then there's a primary list spot for the other. So I think if there's a bid on Evans, West Coast will actually match it, and vice versa. If there's a bid on Banfield before Evans, they'll just match the one first, and then hope there's sentiment with the remaining one, because list spots are so precious at the moment for all clubs, and it looks like this draft's going to be around between 55 and 60 picks. So it would be in the 45 to 55 sort of draft range for Charlie Banfield, I would have thought. But yeah, rumor on the street is there's a few clubs that like Kobe Evans too. So, yeah, the romance of the father-son, especially for West Coast, because we haven't had that many. Obviously, Ben Cousins being the main one, but there hasn't been too many after that. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. And again, I'm more interested in that because we got 5 primary list spots and then all these rookie spots that are being filled by Deb Robinson, Finn McRae, Harry Schellenberg. Do they want to keep one as a mid-season draft spot, just keep it open now, or is there going to be a long-term injury that happens in the year? Who knows? There's a bit of poker with that, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, Charlie Banfield underrated for sure, especially on the back of what I saw at the Colts grand final.
Quick question. With Cal Twomey's Phantom Draft, because we've all got NGAs around sort of the 2025 to 45 range, he had the top 30, right? And there was no Hibbins-Hargraves, there was no Filippo, there was no Greaves. What do all our clubs do when we if there's a bid in our club and there's seriously, because I'm like, if there's a bid on Adam Swade and Javon Filippo is on the board, I'd hate to say it, but
I'm passing him up.
I'm passing on him because it's a very interesting situation if Cal Twomey's Phantom Draft plays out that way. And even Schubert at 26 was you're like, oh wow. So it's a very interesting draft with some of those later NGAs and father-son picks about how it's how clubs treat it, who's sliding, what's happening. And it could be a brutal
trading part of the night. Clubs trading with each other to get in because they're thinking, wow, how did Hibbins-Hargraves slide to 34 or whatever it ends up being?
That would be insane.
So that's where you're going to have clubs on the phone, and North Melbourne. I'm looking at my list here. North have got the first pick of round 2. And then it's the Bulldogs and West Coast, but that's going to get eaten up by.
And it's going to be a shorter second round too, isn't it? Like a lot of those picks are going to get evaporated pretty quickly.
Swallow up, yeah.
So there might only be
sudden
no picks in that second round.
Pick 35 that GWS didn't really want is prime land. So
and that's why I'm happy with our 38 because that's going to be like a 33, 32, 31,
absolutely,
depending how it plays out. And we've been kind of linked to Leon Kickett and. Probably been the main one we've been linked to. But if it comes draft night and there's a Filippo or a Hargraves there, you can't not go down that path. In a lot of ways, that's even maybe a more extraordinary part of Cal's Phantom, that those players could still be there at those picks where our clubs have got secondary picks.
Yeah. So
I think he had Joe Murray in the top 20, and it's just some real, and obviously that's from Intel, right? He's obviously got Intel that around that, but it's so funny, isn't it? Just what clubs see, and obviously the Cameron Ann was kind of one that started it all, but it's probably one of the most intriguing drafts nights or two nights that I can remember. Like I from almost, well, you could almost say from the start, pick 2 to 40. It's just no one, it just feels like trades, bids, matching bids, clean teams, not matching bids. It could go all over the place. Like people said, Essendon's calling their bluff on Adam Swade, that they won't match the bid. I'm like, no, they're not. Because they want to see what's on the board, because there's some really intrigue. They've been talking to Noah Hibbins-Hargraves recently, so they're right. They're even Cal said they're right into him. Pickett came to the club today to talk to all the recruiters. So there's a lot of intriguing stuff happening. It'll be really interesting.
Well, Max isn't surprised with them not being there. I genuinely am. It's quite fascinating, and it's kind of funny, isn't it? Because a lot of this draft has been spoken about as low and weak for so long, but now the second night is becoming equally as enthralling as the first night, because those of us with picks are like, oh, hang on, there could be something juicy left on the table. But TL wants to know from you, Scooter, would you trade pick 9 for 12 and 35 at GWS? Now this is where it's interesting, because if you read the numbers, it's maybe a no. But if you were to say that Filippo and Hibbins-Hargreaves are going to be there at that pick, you're like, shit, hang on.
Yeah, and 35 will probably be really around the 31, 30 mark. So it's maybe 35 now, but really it's actually going to end up being around about the 31 mark. The tricky part for me is probably the Doveston part. It's the player I'm giving up. That,
okay.
I know it sounds funny. If it was a Farrow, I'd probably be more inclined. But such is, if for me and what I know of the Essendon list, such is the need for and we've only got one really decent small forward in Kako, and he's and the modern game to me is going very much small, medium forward route. I mean, the whole final series to me was hardly any of the tall players kick goals, and it was all medium to small forwards, either through pressure or just naturally there's more rush kicks and it's pressure. The ball hits the ground, and there was these guys, it was Bailey and all these guys that were cleaning up. Cameron in the grand final. So for me, it's imperative that Doveston is front and centre. So I probably wouldn't, but if it was any other scenario of Farrow or something like that, I'd be more leaning. I'd maybe lean on it. So I'm still torn, honestly, sometimes we had 5 picks inside 30. So I'm still torn on that part, on what 21, 27 and 30 would have been. Like 21, I think, was going to be around 20 or 21, and bet 27 was going to be 24 and 30 was going to be about 27, 26. And I keep seeing Barker and Schubert and Hibbins-Hargraves and Filippo, and you're like, and you're like, well, that's 3 players we could pick up high caliber. So so it's a really tricky one. Even though a lot of Essendon fans are celebrating that may happen of that pick 9. If it didn't eventuate, I'm not overly panicking either, because 5 picks inside 30 still in this draft is a solid draft.
Before I get to the next question, for those watching, feel free to start firing through questions to any of us. It's probably a unique time where you've got 3 different supporters with picks up the top in the one room, and there's going to be West Coast people wanting to ask Essendon supporters questions and Richmond and so on and so forth. So feel free to fire away. This one's come through from Jasper for you, Jeppa. Do you reckon the West Coast finish above Richmond next year?
Not after seeing what West Coast draw was.
You got pretty stiff there, I reckon.
Oh, I mean, I know it's hard being over here and travel as a starting point, but I think our first 6 games were, against effectively top 6 or top 8 teams. So, Yeah, it starts hard. No, probably not. I think Richmond's better balanced as a list and as a side. You know, you've got, don't underestimate Hopper and Taranto in the midfield just guiding these younger mids around you. You know, Vlosten is a superb leader in the back line, like one of my favourite footballers ever. I suppose it's your forward half punch that will come through with development. But yeah, we're in a spot of bother. We have had a good list clean out this year, thankfully. And obviously the top end talent is going to do wonders. Yeah, we're just going to be patient. I mean, for me, you know, Brisbane won the premiership last year and then there was 17 reserves after that. So we all start again. You know, I measure success on premierships only. So yeah, we just build and get to a point. And for all of our clubs, for me, it feels exciting. And I feel like Essendon's way ahead than where the ladder position sort of suggested last year. But it's exciting to see them come from so young and develop up. And when we do make finals one day, whenever that may be, it's going to be so much more rewarding because you're on the journey with them from the early get-go. Like imagine seeing hopefully in 3 years Harley and Dersma, maybe not 3 years or whatever it is, playing their first final. And don't underestimate, you know, there's Chad Warner is coming home eventually and all of that sort of stuff. So there is free agency and West Coast have got a pretty good reputation with getting free agents. So, yeah, I'm optimistic, but no, we won't finish above Richmond next year.
All roads point to the wild card. Scooter, would you take Richmond's pick 3 in exchange for 6 and 21?
So we've got, that means we had 3, 5, and
assume you can still get 9 with the future second.
Yeah.
Instead of 21.
Okay, yeah, okay. So we've got 3, 9, and then 27 and 30 if we didn't do that. Obviously, it means we didn't do the Blues trade. So I'd be tempted. Yeah. Because if you told me I had Roby and Doveston as my 2 first players, and then 21 I think is a very good player coming in as well, whether it's Filippo, whether it's you know, you could be even getting an Oscar Taylor around that range. It could be really some pretty decent talent. Harley Barker, those kind of guys. I think I would be very tempted on that. I think it would be a very good draft because I've got some later end picks that I can do some work on. So yes, the short answer to that is I'd be Roby, Doveston, and let's go. Let's go.
Next one for Jeppa, being the WA resident guru, Fred Rodriguez. I think we spoke about him on your show as well, Scooter, but what's happening with young Fred? Where's he at?
Yeah, look, he's still a prominent player. He probably just lacks foot speed and doesn't suit the modern game as much as others. There's no knock on his ability. Again, he was great in the Colts grand final, had to play a lone hand when he's, Batman and Robin. His Robin is Toby Wan from South Fremantle, was injured towards the end of the first quarter or halfway through the first. So he had to really stand up on his own with the young Lucas Robinson, who's an underager. And he's got leadership material. He will develop into being a great midfielder. And whether it's Richmond at 38 or Collingwood a bit later on, he'll definitely be an asset to a club. He just might take a little bit longer development-wise than, the other types.
I like it. I think whoever gets him is going to get a good player. I think he will flourish in an AFL environment. Robert, would I prefer Taylor or Cumming more? I just have this little hunch that Cumming could be the best of the lot. I don't know why. I just really like what I saw of him playing in the senior Sandful. Dual position, he's a goal threat, a strong mark overhead. Maybe not the quickest in the draft, but he's most definitely not the slowest either. He's still got a bit of toe. But at the same time, my only worry with not taking Taylor is if we project that next year's draft and the year after doesn't have a Taylor equivalent, and it doesn't sound like there is, from the very minimal research I've done, that maybe we're missing that part of the puzzle for when Broad, Vlosten retire. Miller's going to get a bit older as well. I guess if Richmond are talking about building a premiership team, that's not going to be the next 3 or 4 years. That still could be 6, 7 years, maybe 8, where Taylor would be coming into his own more with a bit more free air. So I think I'm going to stick with Cumming at the moment. But again, I wouldn't be at all upset if we took Taylor. I think he would be equally as good. Scooter, what would you pay Jeppa for pick 2?
Sorry, Greystoke. I don't have an interest overly on CDT to myself. As far as above and beyond some current players around where I'm at, I do rate CDT, by the way, definitely. But it's not in my head. It's not a big enough gap for me. So I'm holding my pick. Sorry. My only deal was pick 1, which is, I know, not going to happen, and it's not reality. But that was my only. That was my only to have the Dersmans play together and get someone of that high caliber. But West Coast rightfully would laugh at me. So that's I would entertain a 5 and 9 for 1. But that's about anything else on 2. I'm just we've got some young ruckmen and Vigo Vicentini and Brian that are coming through. And a guy called Cal Gerine. So I just don't. I'm not really sure I see the obvious need. I know people have always linked CDT to us because of Draper, but he's 18 years old, and we've got a 20-year-old, a 19-year-old, and an 18-year-old already just recently sort of. Actually, no, Brian's probably about 23, 24 now. He's pretty much ready to go. So with those 3 young guys on the list, it's not as a big a need as I think it's been portrayed to Essendon fans. I think we got Blackiston as well last year in the mid-season draft, which they've recruited for another year. So that's four ruckmen, and then you got Peter Wright, who's a pinch hit forward ruckman. So you got 5 caliber ruckman. So it's why I've never really thought pick 2. That whole noise was I always felt like it was pick 1. They were nuts on Dersma, and they Essendon were, and they did a whole lot of interviews with him, and but unfortunately he kept getting better and better. So he was on the show, and I've developed actually a good friendship with him, and we've texted a few times. So I've told him off every time he had a good game. I'm saying, this is so,
you're not helping.
I know you're not helping my cause, man. But I wish him all the best. He's an absolute terrific, mature kid that has a mindset of a country kid that wherever I go, I'm going to give 100%, and he has no issue going interstate. Like, I've talked to him privately. It's just not an issue. He's just, if he gets to West Coast, he'll embrace it day one. So West Coast fans should be really comforted with his personality, the kind of kid he is. He'll just attack it from day one and just be very much, I reckon he'll be a bit of a player's favourite. A lot of the Talent League guys loved him. It was Greaves, Dean, all these guys, they all loved him. So I think West Coast has got an absolute beauty.
I think they do too. We'll do a couple more. Jeppa, next round 1 pick in 2026, Dougie Cochran, well, probable round 1 pick, is now tied to Port Adelaide, as is Cody Walker, who's probably the number 2 pick. Let's say our 2 clubs are going to finish in the bottom 2 again, which does seem quite probable. Are there ways you reckon we can go about trying to get them with the rule changes next year? Like, is there a way we can make it difficult to the point where something might have to give?
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting how it all places with only, I think it's the first 2 picks being able to match. Is that right? Is that the new rule?
I believe so.
Yeah.
So Port, and it's interesting. I find that a lot harder for Port and Carlton to sort of tee up, at short notice, personally. Walker definitely will be bidding on. Cochrane maybe not, just from a list need point of view. So, yeah, I think even this year there's a real notion that if you're bidding on someone, you may get them, and next year it's even worse or even more likely. So, yeah, bids might not be thrown around as much as they used to, but West Coast would definitely bid on Walker if that was the scenario. But at the same time, I see Carlton finishing, in the bottom 6, so it won't take much for them to match that bid.
Port Adelaide wouldn't want Essendon to finish last because Cochrane would be. We've got no one much support around Caddy. So they wouldn't want us to finish last because it would be the first time maybe in history that pick one big bang and Port go, we don't have 3,000 points. So yeah, it would be interesting because I'm blunt. I didn't like the AFL's decision on that one, but it is what it is. But I still think you have to have some integrity behind an NGA that you've at least had 3 years of developing them, going through the system, making them men, and you can't just last minute to say here's an NGA and now we have access to maybe the number one pick. I just thought that was a bad decision by the AFL and lacked for all their urgent messaging they've had this year about the conflicted draft. It just flew in the face, I thought, to some fans.
Yeah,
that decision. And it's not I'm not anything against Port. If I'm Port, I'm doing exactly what they're doing. Like, can you get away with it? Yeah, great. It's not their issue. I just thought for the integrity of the game, to not have these compromised drafts, it just didn't feel like the right decision. But it is what it is. But yeah, it makes it very tough to some of the bottom teams. That if you finish last, you may be looking at pick 3, the third best player automatically. Yep. So you're not getting rewarded.
Yeah, not getting rewarded for being shit, which is what we want to get rewarded for.
You shouldn't get rewarded probably, but if it's us, they'll be different.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Grok, if we take Roby and Cumming, who would I prefer at 38? Burton, LeRae, Emmett, Rodriguez, or Kickett? If it's out of those players, I'd probably be very tempted to go Burton or Kickett. You could have put Sam Allen in there for me, Jesus, because I would have picked him in a heartbeat. But I do get why we're going down the Kickett path, if that is all legitimate, just to have another small forward, because maybe Seth Campbell pushes up the ground a little bit more. But I can see LeRae's tempting as well, because we all know we need some wingmen amongst the ranks. But yeah, give me Sam Allen. We'll do one more each, and then we'll wrap it up. There was one here for Scooter. Earlier, the Bombers were hot on for Lindsay, then Greaves, now Roby. Who are we realistic in getting?
Well, I would probably challenge the first two names. I think fans were hot on Lindsay and Greaves. Maybe not so much the club. The Greaves one is an interesting one because I got some kickback when I said I'm not sure he's in the top 20. But then the Phantom draft seems to be that way. And when I watched him live, watching him live is where you have the concerns, because you're seeing behind the play and you're seeing sometimes, I'll just say it, transition defense, and he's not his friend. So offensively, a very gifted footballer. Want a hard ball? Yeah. If you can get that defensive side of him going, then your upside actually starts to get really good. He's a huge kid, massive tower of a kid. So Lindsay definitely was linked to Essendon, I think literally because he could kick a football, which probably tells you a little bit about the state of Essendon Football Club. We are 18th for scores from turnovers, so that's why a fan base saw Lindsay as an obvious. Can he kick? Great, sign him. but the problem is Lindsay, as the year went on, where he was probably like 4th or 5th for quite a bit of the year. You start to feel, the more you watch him to fight, you start to feel maybe a little bit one-dimensional. He's a halfback, and that's kind of it. Where you kind of wonder if some of those, when we're talking about Farrow, we go, he could end up in the midfield. You can clearly see it to next part of his game. I was never convinced with that with Lindsay. So it was Raby's more the convincing one to me, because he is versatile. He plays multiple positions around the ground. So who are realistically getting? Well, it sounds like Sharp, Taylor, and Dobberson, according by the statistics of accuracy of Cal Twomey. But I thought maybe it was going to be Cumming, Taylor, and Dobberson. So I'm only one away. So we'll
things
see
can
on
still
the
change. We could be bluffing.
Yeah, we'll see on the draft night, the Taylor and Cumming, what actually happens.
That's it. The final one for you, Jeppa. On the rare chance that West Coast don't go for Duff Tyler, if he was out of the equation, I guess, who do you think would slip into that spot number 2?
Yeah, I think it'd be Sharp. I don't think it'd be Roby. I don't believe West Coast would take that punt, and there's a more likelihood that Sharp would relocate here and stay here. There wouldn't be the bigger go-home factor that I feel, and listening to Roby, and I'm just assuming. But we can't afford to stuff this draft up. So we need bona fide A-graders at the first 2 picks. And as impressive as Roby is, and he'll continue to rise and improve, Sharp would be about pick 2 for sure.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Whoever gets Dyson Sharp's getting an absolute ripper, and it's sometimes hard to fathom that he's been spoken about at the 10 mark, or sometimes outside the top 10, given his credentials, and he's almost as certain a 200 gamer as you can get. I think whoever gets him will have a ripper. But Scooter and Jeppa, thank you so much for jumping on tonight. I appreciate your time and your thoughts. It's going to be a fascinating draft night. I suppose in a lot of ways, West Coast hold the first pair of aces, but if it goes the way it should go, I still, as much as I would love Cal's predictions to be right, I still think there's something to play out. Like I mean this respectfully, but I don't trust Blair and his team. We're very good at trying to bluff and manufacture an outcome that we want, whether it's via trade or making someone pay overs or whatever it might be. So there could be a bit more to play out between our two sides, Scooter, but we'll have to see what happens on draft night.
Yeah, I mean, last year Cal had Richmond taking Xavier Lindsay and Shanahan are in the early teens, and it ended up being Houghton and I forget who else it was. But so yeah. So you never know. Richmond can play some games, and when you have 2, 2, and 2, this is the time to do it. If I'm Richmond, even if I'm using Cal a bit, so it'll be very intriguing. The pick, your fourth pick, I guess. Or I guess your second pick of who you take. It'll be very intriguing.
It will be. I'll happily I'll walk out the door with Roby and Cumming, no questions asked, but I just feel like there's something else at play. But have a wonderful night, gentlemen. Thank you so much again, and all the best for draft night. Hopefully we can all celebrate that I don't think either of our teams can lose here. It would take something astronomical for us to walk away disappointed. But hopefully we all get it right, and everyone's supporter base can have a bit of a win. So have a good night and enjoy the draft.
Thanks, Ed.
Thanks.